My beloved child, I will lift from your shoulders the heavy burdens you have carried for far too long, those debts that exist not only on paper, but in your shallow breaths, in your sleepless nights, in the anxiety that keeps returning like a clock hand that refuses to stop. I will clear the path you thought had been sealed shut by numbers and closed doors. I am not coming merely to help you pay it off and then leave you to fall back into the same old cycle. I am coming to break the pattern that has kept you living as though you must constantly brace yourself, run without rest, prove your worth, and save yourself before you are allowed to breathe. I am not saying this to make you proud and self-satisfied, nor to make you weak through dependence. I am saying this so you will stop condemning yourself. Stop believing that your life deserves only what is left over. You did the best you could with the understanding you had. I saw it. And now I say to you that burden is no longer an ending. It is only a stretch of road I used to teach you what true trust really is. And my beloved child, I do not only remove, I also give. I will place into your hands something you once did not dare to dream of, not because you lacked faith, but because you had grown accustomed to living within limits. You learned to shrink your hopes to avoid disappointment. You told yourself, as long as it's enough, not because you wanted little, but because you were afraid to hope for more. But I am a father. A father does not only untangle knots, a father builds a future for his child. What I am about to give may not be the thing you name every day in your prayers. Often, the greatest blessing arrives in the form of a door you never knew existed. I may give you an opportunity, a companion, support, a new path for work or business, a breakthrough in your career, a restoration of honor, or a peace so deep that tomorrow no longer makes you tremble. I may do these things in ways you did not calculate, so that you will understand this. Your life is not led by chance, but by my hand. But I want you to understand one thing clearly from the beginning. This is not a reward for being good enough. Do not place yourself on a scale. Do not use your good days to bargain with me, and your stumbling days to conclude that I will leave. I do not act based on your perfection. I act based on my love. I give grace because it is my nature to be merciful, and because the relationship between you and me is not a contract, but a bond of fatherhood. You may feel unworthy, and that is not strange. Your mind has been trained to live by human standards. But I am a father. I do not wait for you to meet the standard before I embrace you. I embrace you so you can be healed from the habit of rejecting yourself. I lift you up so you can learn this truth. You are not forgotten. You are called by name. You did not arrive at this moment by accident either. You may think you came here on your own, searching, groping your way forward, piecing fragments together step by step. But in truth, there are things I have been quietly arranging for a long time. Doors that closed so you would not take the wrong turn. Plans that were delayed so you would not enter that season with an unsteady heart. Meetings that seemed coincidental, but were the right people at the right time. Inner shifts you could not explain suddenly, no longer wanting to live as before. Suddenly weary of pretense. Suddenly tired of things that once excited you. That is not losing interest in life. That is me leading you out of shallow living and into depth. I brought you here. I went before you. I prepared this moment the way a sower prepares for harvest, quietly, patiently, precisely. So do not turn away now. Do not leave because you are afraid. Do not leave because you are ashamed. Do not leave because you think you are not enough. Many have given up right at the threshold, not because they were weak, but because they were tired and could not believe that something good might stay with them. You have been like that before. Whenever the light began to open, you stepped back because an old voice inside you whispered, "It will probably be lost anyway." But I am replacing that voice with my truth. You do not need to run from blessing as if it were a trap. You do not need to sabotage peaceful days because you believe stability is not meant for you. Stay. Stay with me. Stay in my presence. Stay in the promise. Stay as your breathing slows. Stay until the end, not so you can perform the right rituals, but so your heart has time to recognize that I am speaking, and to change direction at the right moment. For what I am about to reveal will not only lighten your debts, it will redirect your life. You may be asking me to solve a problem, but I am transforming an entire way of living. You may be asking for an escape, but I am opening a path. You may see only numbers and pressure, but I see the person you will become once you are freed from the fear of lack. I do not only want you to get through this season, I want you to come out of it with a new identity, no longer someone who lives on constant alert, but someone who lives in trust, no longer someone who shrinks in fear of loss, but someone who knows how to steward blessing, no longer someone who runs to prove their worth, but someone who walks steadily, knowing they belong to me. And when the direction changes, the doors will change, the relationships will change, the way you use time, the way you choose, the way you speak to yourself, everything will be set in order again. But first, there is something very simple. I need you to do something you often overlook. Listen carefully, not with your ears, but with a heart that has grown still. Do not listen to me in haste. Do not listen while you are both pleading and arguing at the same time. Let silence become the place where I lay my voice within you. There are instructions I will speak very gently, not loudly, not dramatically, but clear enough for the one who is willing to stop. There are things I will ask you to release: a draining habit, a self-diminishing way of thinking, a connection that pulls you downward so that you will have room to receive what I give. And there are also things I will teach you to trust a little more, to trust that you are worthy of being supported, to trust that you are not meant to manage everything on your own, to trust that the future is not an endless battle, but a journey walked with me by your side, my beloved child. I am not calling you to strive harder in order to reach me. I am calling you to remain, so that you may recognize that I have been here from the beginning. I am not telling you to brace yourself to change your destiny. I am asking you to place your heart in my hands so that I may redirect your path. You have come too far to return to the old way. So stay with me right now, in this very moment. Let me finish speaking. Let me touch the deepest place within you, the place where you are tired but afraid to admit your weariness, where you are afraid yet still pretend to be fine, where you long to be rescued but feel ashamed of that longing. I do not blame you. I only want you to understand this. I am your Father, and when I say, I will erase your debts, I am also saying, I will open a new future for you. Listen carefully, because these words do not merely comfort you, they will lead you into another chapter. There have been very long nights when you lay still in the darkness and asked a question you never dared to say aloud. Have you forgotten me? You tried to push that question away, yet it returned, persistent like a quiet knock against your heart. And at times, that doubt took on an even more painful form. Am I being punished? You never spoke it, but you carried it within you, allowing it to slowly gnaw away at your peace. Today, I want you to hear this clearly and deeply, not through the lens of fear, not through wounded memories. I do not punish my children with lack. That has never been my way. That thought does not come from truth. It is a poisonous seed planted when you were at your weakest, when you were too exhausted to discern which voice was mine and which voice sought to pull you down. The truth is that you have walked through more battles than others can see. Some battles were not loud, not violent, yet they wore you down from the inside. You were placed into situations you never asked for, never chose, never had time to prepare yourself for. There were days when you were simply trying to survive, not to live well. That does not make you weak, it makes you human. I have seen you stand firm in circumstances where others would have collapsed long ago. Yet you often forget this. You remember only what you lack, what you have not achieved, what you have not yet reached. And you forget that the fact you are still standing here is already a quiet miracle. You once believed as well. You believed in people's promises, believed in support that was painted beautifully, offered at just the right time, spoken with great conviction, and you waited. You were patient. You hoped. But when the door slammed shut, when the hand that once held yours let go, you found yourself falling into emptiness, not because you were foolish, but because you longed to be upheld. You placed your trust in the wrong place, not because you lacked wisdom, but because you desired safety. I do not blame you for that. What grieves me is seeing you turn and blame yourself, believing it was all your fault, that if only you were better, stronger, wiser, then everything would not have fallen apart. But my beloved child, when everything falls away, when the layers of protection you once clung to are gone, when the outside voices grow silent and only you and I remain, you think it is failure, you think it is abandonment, yet in truth, it is the moment I am closest to you, not because I have just arrived, but because everything that once obscured me has been removed. Some connections exist only while you are strong, useful, or have something to exchange. When all of that disappears, I am still there. I do not need you to have anything in order to stay. I do not need you to prove anything to be held. I am there because I am your father, and you are my child. Even in the days when you felt most alone, I never took my eyes off you. I did not stand at a distance to observe. I bent down and touched every small detail you failed to notice. When you opened the cupboard and still had enough for a meal, that was not by chance. When you thought you could not endure another day, yet still woke up the next morning, that was not because you were stronger than you realized. It was I who kept your thoughts from shattering. There were moments when your mind stood at the edge of collapse, when one more push would have caused everything to fall apart. But I intervened. I slowed your heartbeat, calmed your breathing, and held you together when you believed you had nothing left to hold on to. There were times when help came to you without your asking, a timely message, a hand extended without warning, a small amount just enough to get you through the day. You thought it was luck, coincidence, or simple human kindness. But behind those moments was my hand at work. I touched the hearts of others in ways you could not see, prompting them to remember you, to act not out of obligation, but from an inner stirring. I do not need you to beg people one by one. I do not want you to live in a posture of lowering yourself just to survive. I quietly arrange things so that you are supported without losing your dignity. So that you may understand this, you do not live by pity, you live under my covering. I know there are days when you look around and quietly ask yourself, if you are truly here, why do I still have to struggle like this? But, my beloved, lack is not always a sign of absence. Very often, it is a passage, a transition. There are things I do not allow you to receive too early, not to wound you, but to protect you. Some blessings, if they arrive while your heart is still trembling, would become a burden rather than a gift. I am building within you a foundation stronger than comfort, a foundation of endurance, of the ability to remain steady when things do not go your way, of a faith not governed by conditions. These things are not dazzling, but they keep you alive, then strong, then deep. You are not forgotten. You are not being punished. You are being led through a difficult stretch of road, where I sift out what is no longer necessary, where I teach you to discern which voice is true and which lies wear the disguise of logic. The enemy wants you to believe that lack is proof that I have turned away, because if you accept that lie, you will leave me precisely when you need me most. But the truth is the opposite. It is in the moments when you have nothing left to lean on that I become your only support. And when you learn to rest in me without conditions, without bargaining, without suspicion, you will realize that I was there from the beginning. You simply were not yet still enough to see. Let me say this clearly. So it is etched deeper in you than every painful memory. I do not measure my love by temporary abundance. I measure it by an unwavering presence. When you think you are about to collapse, I hold you upright. When you believe you are empty, I preserve one last drop within you. When you no longer have a well-formed prayer, I still understand your sigh. And then, when you look back, not now, but at the time I choose, you will see that those days of lack were not evidence of abandonment, but proof that you were being guarded in a way deeper than you had ever known. My beloved, you no longer have to ask whether I have forgotten you. That question may still arise, but it no longer has authority. The truth is this: I was there, in every smallest detail, even when you did not recognize it, and I am still here unchanged, unwearied, my hand not withdrawn. You do not need to strain yourself to believe. You only need to allow your heart to rest for a moment in this truth. You were never abandoned. You were being led along a path that one day you yourself will understand why I did not let you take another. Be still and hear me speak in a voice that is unhurried, yet undeniable. The moment of transition has reached its threshold. This is not a vague prediction, nor a self-soothing phrase to help you keep going. This is the moment I call your name, the moment I step into your story in a way you will not mistake. The long days of waiting, the years you held yourself upright between pressure and hope, they were not meaningless. They were the groundwork, so you would recognize that what is coming is not the result of your strength, but the imprint of my hand. I am the one who stands for what is right. I see through the hasty judgments, the labels, the uninformed glances that were once placed upon you. I am also the one who heals what has been broken, not only the numbers on paper, but the eroded self-worth, the peace that was stolen, and the faith chipped away after every effort that still left you breathless. When I act, I do not patch things up, I restore them. I do not merely return you to what is enough. I bring you into a new order, where you no longer live from the fear of lack, but from the steadiness of knowing you are cared for. Therefore, I speak to you with the authority of one who knows every path and every turn. Financial burdens will be lifted, not by you forcing yourself through another cycle, not through compromises that exhaust you, but through an intervention that is timely, precise, and beyond familiar logic. Knots that seemed impossible to untie will loosen. The weights pressing on your mind will no longer rule your sleep. You will feel a surprising lightness, like setting down an overloaded backpack and suddenly remembering that your back can stand upright again. But I do not stop at removing burdens. I place into your hands a blessing clear enough to silence the voices of doubt. There are those who once viewed you through the lens of failure, who concluded too quickly, who measured you by a difficult season. When I lift you up, I will not need you to explain yourself. My blessing will speak for itself. It will not be loud or boastful, but it will be bright enough to quiet every judgment. You will not need to argue to be recognized. The change itself will be the answer. This is not a small favor, not a temporary relief to help you breathe for a moment, only to return to the old cycle. This is a turning point, a miracle in the way I work, not flashy, but deep, not sudden, but enduring. Provision will come from directions you did not expect, in the rhythm I choose. At the moment I know you are ready, you will discover that when resources arrive together with peace, they are no longer a burden to guard, but tools to steward wisely. I know you have learned to be cautious when you hear great promises. You have grown used to shrinking your expectations to protect yourself. But I invite you to open your heart just a little more, not to indulge in baseless dreaming, but to receive the truth that I am able to do beyond the frames you once set. What I give does not pull you away from your values. It helps you live faithfully within them. You will not be swept into display. You will be placed into stability. You will not be enslaved by numbers. You will know how to use numbers in service of what is good. Remember this day not as a mystical marker, but as a promise spoken openly in the light. There will come a time, not far from now, when you look back and recognize a clear dividing line before and after. Before were the days you struggled within anxiety. After are the days you walk with a different breath. You will say it, not to boast, but to bear witness. From that moment on, my story changed direction, and you will notice that change spreading outward into how you make decisions, how you sleep, how you face the future. I remind you of this so that your heart may remain upright. Blessing does not come to sever you from your roots. It comes so that you may steward abundance with humility, steward opportunity with responsibility, steward influence with compassion. When I place more into your hands, I also place wisdom into your heart, so that you do not lose yourself. You will learn how to say enough even when you could say more. You will know when to open your hands, when to close them, and how to keep your heart tender amid change. If you are asking, when let me keep that answer in my hands? Timing belongs to me. Your part is to remain in trust, to walk uprightly, and to be ready when the door opens. Do not rush ahead. Do not fear falling behind. I am aligning even the smallest details: meetings, phone calls, decisions that seem ordinary, so that when everything converges, you step through in freedom, not in panic. And when the blessing arrives, you will recognize something unexpected. The greatest joy will not simply be that the numbers are resolved, but that peace has returned. That peace does not depend on circumstances. It stands firm because it knows it is being held. From that foundation of peace, you will work better, love more deeply, and look at life with less defensiveness. A financial redirection will carry with it an inner redirection, gentle, yet unmistakable. Trust me when I say this, I am not late. I arrive at the precise moment so that what I do will not be mistaken for your own achievement. And when I act completely. You will not need to return and patch old fragments. You will step into a new order. Remain in this word. Let it settle and dwell within you. And you will see not through thunder, but through truth unfolding day by day that your story has turned. And from that turning point, everything has begun to move to a different rhythm, the rhythm of restoration and justice. Stay a little longer. Do not leave too quickly. Do not close your heart because you think you have heard too many words of comfort already. I invite you to listen all the way through, not with guarded alertness, but with a heart that is weary and yet still longs to believe. For what I am about to say is not a phrase carried away by the wind, nor a promise meant only to soothe for a moment. This is a living promise bearing breath, bearing a pulse, bearing the weight of truth. And every word I speak, once released, never returns empty. It always carries fulfillment. Even if you cannot yet see its form, you have grown accustomed to needing to understand before daring to move forward. You learn to analyze in order to protect yourself, to ask questions so as not to be wounded again. That is not wrong. But today, I am not inviting you to understand everything. I am inviting you to trust enough. Trust is not closing your eyes to reality. It is daring to place reality into my hands, even when you do not yet know what I will do with it. You do not need a complete map for the entire journey. You only need enough light for the next step, and that light I will not withdraw. It may be that within you, faith no longer burns as brightly as it once did. It does not stand tall. It is not bold. It does not speak in confident declarations. It trembles. It feels fragile. It is mixed with exhaustion and uncertainty. But my beloved, I have never been searching for perfect faith. I do not wait for you to gather enough courage before I come. I come when all you have left is a small fragment, a fragment you thought you would lose. Yet for some reason, it remains. That fragment is enough for me to take hold of. That fragment is enough for me to begin. Do not underestimate what remains within you. Do not assume that because it is small, because it is weak, because it no longer burns with intensity, it is useless. A seed, no matter how small, still carries the full potential of a garden. What determines the outcome is not the size of the seed, but the hand that sows it. And my hand does not tremble. I know where to plant, when to plant, and how to bring life forth at the appointed time. You once believed that miracles only happen when you are strong enough, steady enough, faithful enough. You blamed yourself for feeling that your faith was no longer what it used to be. But my child, miracles do not depend on your strength, nor are they limited by your condition. Miracles are born from my love, and that love is not measured by how well you respond. It does not increase when you are strong, nor decrease when you are weak. It does not grow weary when you move slowly, nor turn away when you doubt. My love has no boundaries, and therefore what I do for you is not confined by human frameworks. I know there are days when you wake up with a quiet question resting inside you: if you truly love me, why am I still here? You do not ask to accuse, you ask because you are tired. And I am not offended by that question. I only want you to know this: I do not work according to the hurried rhythm of fear, but according to the steady rhythm of wisdom. There are things I have not yet unveiled, not because I have forgotten, but because I am protecting them. There are promises growing in silence, and if they were exposed too early, the wind would break them. Let me do my part. You do not need to strain yourself to hold a role you were never called to carry. You are not your own savior. You are not the one who must turn everything around. You are simply the one who is loved. And from that place, you are allowed to rest in trust. Rest is not giving up. Rest is laying the burden down in the right place. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you create space for me to act. I want you to understand this deeply. I do not need you to believe more. I only need you not to walk away. Do not leave when you do not yet understand. Do not close your heart when you have not yet seen. Do not conclude when the story is still unfinished. Stay within the promise, within my presence, within the slowing of your breath. There are moments when the bravest thing is not to move forward, but to remain still so that you may be reached. You may feel that you have nothing significant to offer me, but you forget this: your emptiness is precisely the place where I love to work most. When your hands are no longer clenched, I finally have room to place something in them. When your heart is no longer noisy, I have space to speak. When you no longer rely on your own confidence, you begin to lean on me in a way that is real. And from that point of reliance, the things that once seemed impossible will gradually find a way through. Let me repeat this with both gentleness and certainty: what I have promised does not return in vain. It may take a longer route. It may arrive in a form you did not expect, but it will come, carrying its full purpose. You will recognize it not in a dramatic moment, but through the accumulation of small changes: a timely decision, a door opening, a fear losing its grip, a peace that needs no explanation. You have walked a very long stretch of road with your bare hands. You have managed, calculated each step, weighed every possibility, negotiated with life, with people, and often even with me. You have prayed more than you realize, not with ornate words, but with hurried breaths in the middle of the night. with questions stuck in your throat as you stared at the reality before you. There were days when your life felt as though it were hanging by a thin thread, one more shift, one wrong touch, and everything could snap. And in your effort to keep that thread from breaking, you used all the strength you had. But my beloved, there are battles that were never meant to be won by human strength. There are burdens that, if you keep trying to carry them with your own hands, will break you before you reach the destination. I have seen your weariness, not the outward kind, but the quiet exhaustion that comes from always having to push just a little more. I have seen the guilt creeping into your heart when you thought that if you were stronger, wiser, better, things would not have come to this. You blamed yourself for not being able to carry everything, control everything, protect everything you love. But today, I want you to hear this clearly. You were never created to carry everything alone. Now I speak to you with gentleness. But without hesitation, this battle will no longer be decided by your hands. Not because you are weak, but because I do not want you to keep living in a state of saving yourself. There are battles that, if you win them by your own hands, you will think they are your own achievement. But there are victories I reserve for myself, so that when they arrive, you will know with certainty that you have been rescued, guided, and protected. Your hands have trembled enough. Now is the time to lay them down and let my hands move. I know you have asked many times, not in rebellion, but in exhaustion, why? Lord, why must I pass through so much hardship? Why does everything seem harder for me? Why is it one door after another, closing right in front of my eyes? I have heard every one of those questions. I have not turned away from them. But my beloved, there are answers that can only be understood after you have walked through the path, not before you step into it. And this is my answer to you today because I am protecting you. I have closed doors that, had you walked through them, would have cost you your very soul. I have blocked paths that looked promising, full of light, full of opportunity, but that would have ended by leaving you empty, bitter, or wounded far more deeply than you can imagine. You see only loss, I see the outcome. You see only the present, I see the entire journey. There are things I did not allow to happen, not because I am harsh, but because I love you too much to let you destroy yourself through choices that only appeared good. I also allowed you to enter the desert, and I know the desert frightened you. It is dry, silent, and barren. There is little there to cling to, no noise to distract you, no crowd for you to disappear into. But, my beloved, the desert is not punishment. The desert is where I shield you from what you are not yet strong enough to face. The desert is where I quiet voices that are not mine, so you can begin to discern what is my voice and what belongs to fear, pressure, and human expectation. In the desert, you no longer rely on what is familiar, and it is precisely there that you begin to truly listen. I did not leave you in the desert to die of thirst. I was there every day, every step, even when you could not always feel me. I gave you enough water for each day, enough strength for each step, and more importantly, I softened your heart, a heart that had grown rigid from self-defense, a heart that had closed itself after too many disappointments, a heart that tried to control everything out of fear of losing again. I softened it not by force, but by steady presence. Little by little, you stopped straining. Little by little, you stopped arguing. Little by little, you began to surrender, not because you lost, but because you trusted. And when the heart is softened, when you no longer brace yourself with pride or despair, only then can a new harvest come. You cannot reap while your heart is clenched around everything. You cannot receive while your hands are trembling with fear of loss. Now you are stepping into a different season, a season of response, a season where what was sown in tears begins to bloom. You thought I had been silent all this time. But the truth is this: I was working in the quiet, not loudly, not for display, but with every detail arranged, every connection, every shift, every timing. Nothing has been accidental. My beloved, remember this scripture, and let it sink deep into your heart like a firm anchor. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. He will act at the right time. Psalm 3:7-7. Stillness is not giving up. It is a deep trust that the one who reigns is still reigning, even when your eyes cannot yet see. From this point on, you will begin to notice the shift. Not everything will change overnight, but the center will change. You will no longer fight in panic. You will walk in steadiness. You will no longer carry life through fear, but steward it through the wisdom I give you. What once drained you will no longer have authority over you. And when you look back at the desert, you will not remember only the heat and the wind. You will remember that it was there. You learned to trust me more than yourself. Do you know why so many nights you lay awake? Even when your body was exhausted, yet your mind refused to rest. An invisible burden has followed you for a long time, like a shadow that would not leave, like a whisper that would not go silent. It was not only numbers on paper, not only stacked bills, not only debts others could see. It was the feeling of being cornered, the quiet fear that tomorrow might not be enough, the question that kept repeating in your mind: what if everything collapses? I know how that debt stole your sleep. I know how it made you wake each morning with a weight in your chest, even as you kept smiling, kept fulfilling responsibilities, kept pretending you were fine. But today I speak to you with unshakable certainty. That burden will be lifted. What once made you tremble will no longer rule your mind. The bills that seemed to have no way out, the numbers that overwhelmed you, the obligations that made you feel perpetually one step behind, all of these will leave your life, one by one. Not because you suddenly become flawless, not because you discover some clever trick, but because I have decided to act. When I move, things begin to move. What stood frozen in deadlock will be unlocked. Financial considerations that seemed sealed shut will open at the right time. You will look back and realize that what you thought was impossible was only waiting for the proper moment to dissolve. I do nothing halfway. I do not loosen one part and leave you carrying the rest. When I untie completely. The sense of defeat that has clung to your soul for months, perhaps for years, will be pulled out by the roots. That feeling did not come only from circumstances, but from the words you spoke to yourself: that you failed, that you were slow, that you were not enough. Those words lodged themselves like thorns, leaving you not only weary from lack, but exhausted by shame. But I tell you today that shame has no place anymore. It does not belong in your future. It is not your identity. When I touch your soul, I do not change only outward circumstances. I uproot the false conclusions you have attached to yourself. For when I decide to act, nothing can resist. Not because the opposing force is weak, but because my power does not need to argue. I do not negotiate with impossibility. I am not confined by human logic or by gloomy forecasts. When I extend my hand, even what was once called impossible must submit. What you tried to pull with your own strength and could not move one touch from me, and it must give way. I am not pressured by the time you believe you have lost, nor by the years you have endured hardship. I am able to restore, to make up what was lacking, and to move you forward faster than you imagine without wearing you out. And now, listen very carefully to what I am about to say, not as a distant luxury, but as a truth being established. You will prosper, not merely survive, not just escape the pit only to live on edge afterward. You will prosper. Prosperity is not merely having more, it is living with peace of mind, free from the obsession of lack, It is the ability to plan without trembling, to look toward tomorrow without shrinking back. It is no longer weighing every decision by the fear of loss, but by wisdom that is guided. You will enter a season of peace, where the table is no longer a place of anxiety but a place of gratitude. Bills being paid will no longer feel like rare miracles, but become a steady rhythm of life. Your heart will be lighter, no longer stretched taut between responsibility and fear. You will sleep more deeply, not because every problem vanishes overnight, but because you know you are being cared for. This peace does not depend on external circumstances. It comes from knowing whose hands hold your life. And from that place of abundance, you will do what you have long desired, but once did not dare. You will bless others without trembling. You will give without having to tell yourself that you are taking a risk. You will help without fearing that you will lack tomorrow. For you will no longer give from fear, but from trust. I will expand your heart together with the resources I place in your hands. You will become the answer to someone else's prayer, just as you once prayed and waited for a hand to be extended. And when you do this, you will realize that the flow of blessing does not run dry, it is sustained by me. The season of shame is closing not with noise, but with truth firmly established. What once made you lower your head, I will turn into a foundation on which you stand upright. A season of honor is beginning not for your boasting, but so that my faithfulness may be clearly seen. That honor will not make you proud, it will make you more humble. Because you know how you were lifted up. You will remember the days when you counted every coin, every opportunity, every hope, and you will not forget. But those memories will no longer wound you. They will make you grateful. Hold this in your heart as an unfading promise. I do not merely rescue you from crisis, I lead you into fullness. I do not only pull you out of darkness, I place you in the light long enough for you to learn how to live there. As Scripture says, the Lord declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." Jeremiah 2:9-1. These words are not for hanging on a wall, but for walking in day by day, decision by decision. Therefore, my beloved, release fear from your hands. Let me do my part. You do not need to strain to be worthy of what I am about to do. You only need to remain in trust. Walk uprightly, and allow your heart to open to receive. The season of survival is past. A new season is opening before you, one where you do not merely survive, but live in abundance. Live in peace. Live as one who knows they are loved and provided for. And when you look back, you will know it was not because you were better, but because I was faithful and I have never broken a promise. You have grown accustomed to being looked at with skeptical eyes not once, but many times. There were glances that passed over you quickly, as if conclusions had already been reached before true understanding began. They looked at your present circumstances and hurried to label you that you had not tried hard enough, that you chose the wrong path, that you lacked discipline or worse, that you lacked faith. They did not know what unfolded behind the closed doors of your life. They did not see what you had to give up. They saw only outward results and used those results to measure your worth. But my beloved, there is one thing you must carve deeply into your heart. I have never looked at you that way. I have seen what no one else has seen. I see the quiet sacrifices you never speak of, not because you seek praise, but because you have grown used to enduring in silence. I see the times you accepted lack for yourself so those you love would not suffer. I see the difficult decisions you made when no one stood beside you, when there was no guarantee that everything would turn out fine. I see you choosing silence over self-defense, patience over resentment, staying instead of quitting, no matter how exhausted you were. None of these things are small. They carry weight before me, even when human measures cannot weigh them. I have also seen your knees touch the floor in the late hours of the night, when every sound had faded and only quiet worry whispered within your heart. I saw you kneel not because you were strong, but because you had nowhere else left to lean. I heard the prayers that came out unfinished, the broken phrases interrupted by tears that tightened your throat. There were words you could not bring yourself to speak aloud, only a deep sigh, a weary thought rising and then dissolving. But I heard it all. Not a single word fell into emptiness. Not a single tear touched the ground without me knowing its name. You once wondered whether those moments had any meaning at all, whether praying while everything still seemed unmoving was futile, whether waiting while others moved faster and found stability sooner meant you had fallen out of step. Today, I come to you as your Father, your provider, your faithful God, to tell you this: none of it was wasted. You did not waste time when you knelt. You did not waste time when you chose trust over bitterness. You did not waste time when you waited for me. Even while your heart trembled, you have not been left behind. That feeling only comes when you measure your pace against someone else's. But I do not lead my children from a single mold. Some are allowed to move quickly, others are invited to go deep. Some learn through success, others learn through endurance. I allowed you to move more slowly at certain stretches, not because I was restraining you, but because I was building a stronger foundation within you. What I placed inside you requires deep roots, not merely fast-growing branches. And roots can only grow in darkness, in silence, in long seasons unseen by anyone else. You think I have been silent, but that silence is not absence. It is precise, unseen work, never out of rhythm. When you thought I had not answered, I was arranging. When you believed I was delaying, I had already completed what was needed. Some things cannot be revealed until every piece is set in its proper place. I do not work halfway. I do not open doors before you are able to stand firmly. And I do not leave you waiting a single day longer once the time has fully ripened. What I am about to do is not a new plan conceived because you prayed long enough. It was already completed within my intention. You are simply arriving at the intersection of what I prepared and the time I appointed. And when that moment comes, you will realize that the years of waiting were not stretched in vain. They brought you to the right place with a different heart, a clearer vision, and a greater capacity to receive. I know you are weary from being misunderstood, tired of having to prove what should never have required defense. But I do not ask you to protect your own reputation. Your name rests in my hands. When I lift you, I do not require explanations from you. When I make your path clear, judgment will lose its voice on its own, not because you won an argument, but because truth stands without needing to be defended. You are not called to live for human approval. You were called to live in alignment with me. Let this word comfort you in these days of transition. God does not forget your labor. As Scripture declares, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him. Hebrews 6:1-0. This promise is not only for visible achievements, but also for quiet sacrifices no one ever saw. What you sowed in tears, I will not allow to bloom in silence. And now, as I say that the time has come, you do not need to brace yourself or strive to prepare. You only need to remain in trust. What I open, no one can shut. What I give, no one can take away. I do not arrive late. I come at the right moment, so that when you receive, you will have no doubt that it was me. You will see movement not only in circumstances, but within your own heart. Fear will retreat, peace will return, and you will understand that throughout this entire journey, you were never alone. Lift your head not in pride, but because you are seen. Breathe out deeply, for the season of straining has passed. I am still here, and I am still keeping my word. What you have endured does not define you. It has only prepared you for what I am about to do. And when everything begins to unfold, you will no longer ask why the waiting took so long. You will whisper within your heart that everything had been fully arranged, and that I have been faithful from beginning to end. Now you are stepping into a very different hour of your life. Even though outwardly everything may still look familiar, yet in the unseen realm, a door has already opened. This is the moment when the things you once called impossible begin to lose their grip, not because circumstances suddenly shift on their own, but because I am at work. This is a season of financial miracles, not in loud or dramatic ways, not according to formulas you have learned before, but according to my rhythm, precise, unexpected, and beyond what you have prepared for. You will receive news that causes your legs to feel unsteady beneath you, not because of fear, but because your heart can no longer carry the weight of amazement. Certain announcements will arrive when you least expect them, on days you assumed were ordinary. Yet once you hear them, you will have to pause and bow your head, because you will know without question this did not come from your own cleverness. It came from a higher hand, from an orchestration you could not have seen from the beginning. There are things you once whispered in prayer and then stopped mentioning, believing they had gone too far out of reach, but I have never forgotten. You will also receive offers you never imagined would come your way, not because you suddenly became perfect, but because the timing has reached its fullness. Doors you once knocked on at the wrong time, in the wrong season, will now open in a very different way. You will not need to force them. You will not need to plead. You will see things unfold more gently than you expected. Conversations that were once delayed will be resumed. Emails that once went unanswered will receive replies. Paths that seemed closed because of procedures, regulations, or cold bureaucracy will open so quickly that you will wonder why they ever felt so difficult before. There are people who once made promises to you and then disappeared without explanation. You learn not to expect anymore. You learn to pull yourself inward so disappointment would not wound you again. But, my beloved, not all silence is betrayal. Some silence exists simply because the time has not yet come. I will stir those people again, not through pressure, but through a quiet stirring of their conscience. They will remember you not for personal gain, but because I touch their hearts. You will not need to go searching what I have appointed. I will bring before you myself. There will be a release of resources in very tangible, practical ways. Fees will be reduced. Obligations will be adjusted. Debts will be removed, canceled, or dismantled in ways you did not calculate. Things you once believed were fixed and unchangeable will become far more flexible than you imagined when I move upon them. I am not bound by human systems. I can pass through paperwork, processes, signatures, and deadlines. When I make a way, even legal barriers must yield in proper order. But, my beloved, before these things fully manifest, I want you to keep your heart in the right place. Do not doubt. Do not interrogate me with endless questions of how. Such questions are not wrong. But if you cling to them, you will close your own heart. You are not called to understand every step of the process. You are called to trust the one who holds the process in his hands. Faith is not blind recklessness. It is placing the full weight of your heart upon my faithfulness, even when you have not yet seen the outcome. Simply trust. Simply remain. Remaining does not mean passive stillness. It means refusing to step away from my presence when you have not yet seen change. Many leave just before the miracle appears, not because they lack faith, but because they are weary. But I say to you today, do not leave now. Do not turn away when the door has already begun to open from the other side. Your waiting is not wasted, and your perseverance has not been forgotten. Those who live by faith are not led by what their eyes can see. If you look only with your eyes, you will always find a reason to fear. But those who live by faith walk according to what has been planted in their hearts. You have sown with tears, with prayers, with upright decisions made when no one was watching. Now is the time for those seeds to break through the soil. You may not yet see the whole field, but you will begin to see the first tender shoots, enough for you to know that your faith has not been in vain. If you believe, you will see, not see first and then believe, but believe so that you may see. If you remain, you will experience, not experience first and then remain, but remain so that you may encounter my faithfulness in the most personal way. And if you open your heart to me without keeping a safe distance, without placing me outside your zone of control, I will do more than you have ever asked. Not only more in quantity, but deeper in quality, more peace, more freedom, and greater stability. Remember this scripture as a foundation for the days ahead, and God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. 2 Corinthians 9:8. This word speaks not only of sufficiency, but of purposeful abundance, abundance that frees you from fear, and abundance that enables you to become a source of blessing to others. Beloved child, let your heart be at rest. Do not rush to tell others. Do not rush to shield yourself from disappointment. Hold this word as a sacred seed within you. When the time comes, you will not need to announce it. The change will speak for itself. And when you look back on this moment, you will realize that this was not only when things began to move, but when you chose to stay, chose to trust, and chose to open your heart, and from there, I did the rest. Now, I invite you to do something very gentle, yet do not underestimate its weight. It is not a grand task that exhausts you, nor a showy action meant to prove anything. It is simply a small step of faith, a simple choice flowing from a heart that has been touched. When you choose to express your agreement with this word, when you allow it to move beyond your private space, you open a door through which I can step to touch other hearts, hearts that are weary as you once were, confused as you once were, in need of being reminded that they have not been forgotten. There are people out there walking through very long days, days where smiles have become habit, while hope inside is quietly running dry. They do not lack information, they lack comfort. They do not lack advice, they lack a voice that knows their name. And when you allow this message to go on, you are not merely sharing words, you are placing a lamp in my hand, so that I may shine light into places you have never stepped. You do not need to know who will read, who will pause, who will be healed. Your part is simply to open your hand. My part is to reach the right person at the right time. Beloved child, I do not only visit individuals in silence, I also work through connection. I delight in placing small seeds into the hands of my children and then watching them take root in distant places. When you choose to let this word continue, you are participating in my work, not as one who carries the burden, but as a co-laborer in love. I do not need you to explain, argue, or persuade. I only need you to trust that I know how to use the simple to accomplish the profound. Do not think what you are doing is too small to make a difference. I have often begun great stories with very simple acts, a whispered yes, a step taken in the night, a piece of bread broken. I still work this way, so that you may know my power is not limited by the size of the vessel, but by the love placed within it. When you allow this word to spread, you are saying you trust that I am still at work, and you are willing for me to use your willingness. And let me remind you of who I am, not to soothe yourself, but so that you may stand firm. I am still the one who made a way through deep waters when there was no other path. I am still the one who turned lack into abundance, fear into courage, death into life. I do not change with the times, nor grow weary with human pace. My source does not run dry, I do not delay, and I do not withdraw my hand. What I have done in history is not a tale to admire, but a testimony so that you may believe I am still acting today for you, through you, and far beyond you. You may think this age is different, that people have changed, that faith has grown thin, but, beloved child, the soul's thirst remains the same. Fear still needs to be soothed. Loneliness still needs to be named. And I am still the one who answers. When you allow this message to touch others, you remind them that I did not abandon the world when it became more complex. I stayed, and I am nearer than ever to broken hearts. Do not worry about results. Do not measure by numbers. Do not ask whether this is worth it. Faith is not measured by visible certainty, but by faithfulness in small things. You do not need to see the whole journey to take the first step. You only need to trust that when you remain in love, I will take care of the rest. And when I touch someone through what you have allowed, you may never know their name, but you will know that what you did not vanish into emptiness. Let your heart be at peace as you do this. Not from pressure, not from obligation, not from fear of missing out. Do it with the quiet joy of one who knows they are invited. I do not coerce, I invite. I do not demand, I entrust. And I entrust you, because I have seen your heart soften, open, and become ready to be a place where I set my light. Remember this word to anchor your heart in the days ahead, as Scripture says. The Lord declares, "So shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it." Isaiah 5:1. That word does not need you to defend it. It goes on its own, works on its own, and bears fruit in my time. You only need to allow it to go. And when you take this small step of faith, know that I am visiting you, not only in a moment, but in a process. I am teaching you how to trust without control, how to love without condition, how to give without fear of depletion. You will find your heart growing lighter, for when you allow the light to go out, darkness no longer has the same place within you as before. I am alive. I am active. I am the one who did the things you once heard about, and I am still doing the things you are about to see. Remain in this trust. Let this word continue, and be at ease knowing that when you open your hand, I will use that very openness to touch hearts, waiting to be reminded that I do not change yesterday, today, and forever. Before I place into your hands the abundance you have long hoped for, I must touch the deepest place within you, the place money cannot heal, where numbers cannot mend. For if your heart still carries wounds of self-condemnation, shame, or the feeling of being a failure, then no matter how much I give you, you will still live as one who lacks. I do not want you to have money alone. I want you to have peace. I do not want you merely to step out of hardship. I want you to step into your true identity. This healing does not come to delay the blessing, but to protect it so that when abundance arrives, it does not consume you, mislead you, or turn you into someone else. I see that you have lived too long under the shadow of labels that do not belong to you. There are conclusions you have carried from others' words, from past failures, from prolonged seasons of lack. You have wondered where you went wrong, how you fell short, what you missed. But I speak to you today with unchanging truth. You are not a failure. You are not forgotten. You are not pushed to the margins. You are a child of the King. You belong to my household, and that identity does not rise or fall with a bank balance, nor is it determined by days when you run out of breath. I want to restore the way you see yourself. When you know who you are, you will know how to receive what I give. When you know that you are a child of the King, you will stop living in a posture of begging, Stop shrinking back whenever something good draws near. You will no longer fear abundance as though it were a trap. You will no longer question when doors open. You will stand upright, neither arrogant nor trembling, because you know where you come from and by whom you are kept. Your inheritance is not money alone, it is promise. It is covering. It is the authority to walk in the light without fear of being consumed. I know you are tired of having to guard your heart. You learned to narrow your dreams to avoid pain. You became accustomed to measuring every step so you would not stumble. But, my beloved, I did not create you to live compressed. I created you to govern, to give, to walk in the freedom of one who knows they have a place of refuge. The healing I am doing in you is to remove the invisible cords that have bound you, the cords of fear, of lack, of prolonged insecurity, of the belief that you must pay with yourself in order to receive what is good. Hear me clearly, you have an inheritance. Not an inheritance of display, but an inheritance of ordered sufficiency. You have promises sealed by my faithfulness, and everything that belongs to you will come into your hands, not earlier, so that you become proud, and not later, so that you collapse. I am not hindered by darkness, nor locked out by systems. No demon can snatch from my hand what I have appointed for you. No human structure can make me hesitate. No debt is large enough to change my mind. No season of scarcity is long enough to erode my decision. You may ask, then why must healing come first? Because I love you. I want you to receive blessing with steady hands, not trembling ones. I want you to step into abundance with a settled heart, not one obsessed with holding on or losing. I want you to know how to give without fear of running out, because you trust that your source does not reside in yourself. When identity is restored, provision is no longer pressure, it becomes a tool. You will know how to use money to serve life, to build, to heal, not to fill an emptiness within. And then, from that healed foundation, I will do what I have determined. I will clear your debts and bless you abundantly with substantial financial provision, not by demanding that you trade away your peace, but through doors that open at the right time, not by paths that harden your heart, but by ways that awaken gratitude. I will arrange for burdens to fall away, for knots to be loosened, for resources to be released. You will recognize that when I act, everything unfolds with order, no chaos, no frenzy, no residue of fear left behind. Remember this, when you begin to see movement, you do not have to chase blessing. Blessing will meet you on the path I lead. You do not have to prove yourself worthy. You are invited to remain in the truth. You do not need to understand all my ways. You only need to trust that I complete what I begin. As you keep your heart open, I will place into your hands more than you ever asked for, not only more in quantity, but deeper in quality. You will have enough to live, enough to rest, enough to give, and enough to rejoice without fearing tomorrow. Anchor your heart to this word in the days ahead, God declares. For I am the Lord. I do not change. Therefore you, O sons of Jacob, are not consumed. Malachi 3:6. That unchanging nature is the guarantee of the promise I have for you. What I have determined, I will finish. What I have spoken, I will do. And what I am doing in you now, the healing of your identity, is the surest path for you to enter abundance without losing yourself. So allow me to continue this work in you. Do not rush, and do not be afraid. Remain in trust, so that each old layer may be removed, each fear named and released. When your heart stands in the right place, everything else will find its rightful place. You are a child of the King. You have an inheritance. You have promises. And nothing can stop what I have determined, because I have determined it. And I am faithful to the end. You have walked through battles with no audience. No cheers. No medals awarded. These were confrontations carried out in silence, where you had to stand firm when no one knew you were shaking, where you had to keep going when there was no hand to hold. There were days you lived while bracing yourself, moved forward while hiding your wounds, because you knew that if you stopped, everything might collapse. I know these battles were not recorded in the journals of the world, but they are etched clearly in my sight. I saw every night you wrestled with fear. Every morning you rose with a fragile yet genuine resolve. Today, I will not give up. For a long time, the enemy tried every way to erect barriers between you and what I had prepared. He did not need to shout. He only needed to sow doubt. He did not need a frontal attack. He only needed to stretch out the waiting. He tried to clamp down on your financial flow, making every step heavy, forcing you to weigh every decision as though walking on thin ice. He delayed blessing not to defeat me, but to wear you down. He clouded your mind with repeating questions, distracting you, turning your gaze aside, causing you to doubt the very guidance you once trusted. Then he used lack like an invisible chain, not loud, but persistent. Lack imprisoned you in anxiety, made you shrink back, made you reduce your dreams to avoid pain. He whispered familiar lies that you are unlucky, that you were born at a disadvantage, that your prayers only hit the ceiling and fall back down. He reminded you of delays, of closed doors, of missed opportunities, and then rushed to conclude that I had left. And there were moments, in your weariness, when you almost believed him. But, my beloved child, I have seen it all. I have seen those invisible chains, and I was never standing aside. I was not distracted by the enemy's veils. I did not mistake my silence for absence. What he did not anticipate was this: while he was plotting, I was mobilizing. While he was sowing fear, I was preparing deliverance. While he was stretching time to wear you down, I was arranging the appointed moment. I do not react in panic, I act in authority. There has been a battle taking place in the spiritual realm, not in the way humans imagine, not loudly by worldly standards, but real and decisive. I sent reinforcements from heaven on your behalf, not because you are weak, but because you are precious, not because your faith was insufficient, but because I am a father, and a father protects his children. The Archangel Michael stepped into the battle for you not to display power, but to ensure that what I have decreed would not be stolen. Invisible walls have been torn down. Restraining orders have been revoked. Bonds have been loosened even when you could not yet see it all with your eyes. You may ask why I allowed the battle to last so long. You may wonder why I did not end it sooner. But, my child, in that span of time, I was doing a deeper work. I was guarding your heart from being bent by bitterness. I was keeping your faith from turning into a transaction. I was protecting you from measuring your worth by your circumstances. If I had ended it too early, you might have been relieved of pressure, but not yet free within. I wanted you not only to be released from chains, but also to know how to walk without fear. Now, as the battle in the spiritual realm has tilted toward truth, you will begin to see very tangible movement. Not everything will erupt at once, but each piece will shift into its proper place. Financial streams that were stuck will begin to flow. Unreasonable delays will lose their grip. Confusion will be replaced with clarity. You will realize that what once held you back no longer carries the same authority, not because the enemy has vanished, but because the light has drawn nearer. Hear me say this so your heart may be steady. The lies you once heard will no longer stand against the truth. Lack does not define you. Delay does not cancel promise. Closed doors do not prove abandonment. The enemy uses fragments of the past to write a false story. I use the entirety of your journey to reveal a true one. And that true story is entering a season of transition. In the days ahead, you will be invited to trust in a new way, not to avoid pain, but to stand firm. Do not let memories of former blockages cause you to doubt the doors that are opening. Do not allow old whispers to return when you begin to see light. Remain in my presence. Anchor your mind in truth. When thoughts arise that pull you downward, let them pass without giving them a place to stay. I am teaching you how to discern my voice among many others. You are not fighting alone. You never have. Even when you felt isolated, even when you thought you had been left behind, you were always surrounded by care you could not fully see. I guarded you in your most fragile moments. I kept you from collapsing when pressure surged. I calmed the waves just enough for you to cross. And now, as the fog begins to lift, you will see the road ahead more clearly. Let your heart rest in this truth: what I have appointed for you cannot be stolen. Not by the enemy, not by systems, not by delay, not by lack. The battle in the spiritual realm was never meant to make you afraid. It was meant to ensure that when blessing arrives, you receive it with steady hands. You will not need to argue for recognition. You will not need to strain to prove yourself. The change will speak for itself and reveal where it comes from. So, my beloved child, take a deep breath. Release the weight of the lies that have clung to you for far too long. Allow me to continue the work I have begun, from inner healing to the opening of outward paths. When you look back on these quiet days of battle, you will no longer see them as years that were stolen, but as necessary training for stepping into freedom. You stood firm. You remained faithful. And I have stood. I am standing. And I will always stand on your side. There are things you never dared to imagine, not because you lacked dreams, but because you grew accustomed to limiting yourself in order to avoid disappointment. You learned to look downward instead of far ahead, to expect less so it would hurt less, to accept closed doors as part of what felt normal in life. But, my beloved child, those very places you were afraid to touch were once battlefields. Not battlefields of guns or fire, but battlefields of delay, of substitution, of invisible resistance meant to discourage you before you ever realized what was being taken away. There were contracts that should have reached you at exactly the right time, opportunities arranged with great precision, yet they suddenly disappeared without explanation. You questioned yourself, wondering what you had done wrong, what you had missed, what sentence you failed to say. You blamed yourself again and again. But the truth is, some blockages did not arise from your mistakes. Some things were intercepted before you could even touch them, because the enemy understood very clearly that if you received them, you would step into a different season, a season of greater freedom, greater stability, and far less vulnerability to manipulation. There were also people who were appointed to enter your life as helpers, companions, and waymakers. They carried abilities, resources, and connections you could never have created on your own. Yet those relationships were distorted, cooled, misunderstood, or broken in ways beyond your control. You assumed it was an unfortunate coincidence, cruel fate at work. But behind the scenes, invisible forces intervened to keep you standing still, to make you doubt the guidance you were under, and to convince you that you would always have to manage everything alone. Doors that rightfully belonged to you, not because you demanded them, but because they aligned with the path I had set, were once shut, not by clear laws or obvious rules, but by unseen hands that made everything tangled, slow, and vague. You knocked, but no one answered. You followed the proper process, yet the result was silence. You grew exhausted trying to explain what could not be explained, and in that emptiness, the enemy whispered that you were not enough, that you were not chosen, that you had arrived too late. Meanwhile, you prayed, not with strong, confident prayers, but with weary, fragmented ones, often nothing more than a sigh. There were nights when you knelt with empty hands, your faith hanging by a thread, fragile enough to snap with one more gust of wind. You did not pray because you were certain. You prayed because you had nowhere else to go. You thought that such weakness diminished you before me. But, my beloved, it was in those fragile moments that I acted most powerfully. For while you were weary, I sent the Archangel Michael to fight on your behalf, and he did fight. Not in the visible realm, but in the spiritual domain where unseen decisions are made. While you slept from exhaustion, he was contending. While you wept in helplessness, he was breaking chains that had bound you for far too long. When you believed nothing was happening, that everything remained stagnant, Michael was clearing the way, step by step, in tireless faithfulness. Traps had been set for you to misstep, to veer away from the path I ordained. Those traps had been dismantled. Invisible orders were issued to delay, confuse, and divert, but those orders have been revoked. What the enemy attempted to pull out of alignment, relationships, opportunities, resources, has been restored to its proper place, not with noise, but with authority. You may wonder why you did not see immediate results, why you still had to wait after praying. But, my beloved, some victories do not manifest at once, so that you may learn not to live by signs, but by trust. If you saw everything instantly, you would lean on what is visible. I want you to learn to lean on me. I want you to know that even when your eyes saw no change, heaven was already moving on your behalf. Now, as you stand at the threshold of a new season, understand this deeply. What was once blocked will no longer be blocked. What was delayed will begin to move. Connections that were distorted will be reordered or replaced with something better. You will realize that long silences were not abandonment, but time I used to complete my work without human interference. Prepare your heart for change, not with tension, but with openness. Do not let memories of past obstruction cause you to doubt the doors now opening. Do not allow old fears to return as new light begins to appear. Walk slowly and steadily, with discernment. I did not remove you from the battlefield so you could scatter aimlessly. I removed you so you could enter freedom with wisdom refined through experience. You were not abandoned when you were weak. You were not forgotten when you were tired. You were not defeated when you had to wait. In every day you believed you were alone. I was there working in ways that were not always visible to your eyes. And now, as the fog begins to lift, you will see the path more clearly, feel greater peace in your heart, and walk with firmer steps. Let this truth anchor your soul. What belongs to you will come to you, not because you fight for it, but because I protect it, not because you strive in your own strength, but because I have fought for you. What was withdrawn will be returned. What was held back will be released. And when you look back on these silent battles, you will no longer call them wasted time, but the season in which I guarded you most carefully. Now, something very real is taking place. Even though you cannot yet see it with natural eyes, heaven is moving. And when heaven moves, nothing can remain the same. Not because the world has suddenly become better, but because the unseen order is being rearranged. Certain wheels have begun to turn. Certain knots have been loosened. Certain restraints that once held you back have lost their authority. You do not need to panic over the changes that are coming. You need to understand that they are not meant to disorient you, but to carry you into another season, a season of answered prayers. You will begin to notice very specific shifts around you. Not everything at once, but enough for you to know this is not coincidence. People who once kept their hearts closed, kept their distance, or looked at you with caution will begin to soften, not because you persuaded them, but because I touched places you could not reach. Some hearts were shut by fear, by wounds, by long-standing misunderstandings, and when heaven moves, such hearts can no longer hold their rigid posture. You will see conversations change. Responses come more quickly. Attitudes grow lighter. You will not need to argue. The change will speak for itself. Doors you knocked on 1,000 times without receiving an answer will suddenly swing open. Not with noise, but with clarity. Files that lay dormant. Processes that were delayed. Decisions that were left hanging will be resolved with a speed that surprises you. You will wonder why everything used to be so difficult. But, my beloved, some doors do not open because the season has not yet arrived. When the season changes, the door does not need convincing. It opens because the time has come. Financial flow that was once restricted will begin to move again. Not merely a small amount to help you catch your breath, but a genuine release. Resources that were stuck will be freed. Expenses that seemed impossible to untangle will be loosened. Streams of income you did not anticipate will appear in very practical ways. I do not work through illusion. I work through ordered provision. You will see things become workable again, no longer jammed as before. And with that flow, your mind will also open. You will no longer make decisions from fear of lack, but from clarity and calm. Good news will come from places you did not expect. It may arrive through a call you were not waiting for, an offer you never imagined you would receive, or a door opening from a direction you had already dismissed. When what has been bound is released, life finds its way forward. You do not need to predict it. You only need to remain in trust. I know how to deliver good news to the right person, at the right time, in a way that you will immediately recognize as orchestration, not chance. Hear this, so your heart may be steady. I do not send Michael to fight over trivial matters. I do not mobilize the hosts of heaven for small outcomes. He comes because what is about to enter your life carries weight. It will not only affect you, but also those you will touch. Some blessings, if they arrive too early, will cause you to lose your way. If they arrive at the right time, they will cause you to stand firm. I have chosen the right time, and because what is coming is significant. The enemy has resisted fiercely not because he is strong, but because he knows he is about to lose control. This blessing is not merely about paying bills. If it were only that, I would have done it long ago. This is an inheritance, not an inheritance to display, but an inheritance to steward. It is the reward for quiet faithfulness, for the nights you chose to believe when nothing seemed to change. It is the fruit of a long season in which you endured without losing your heart. It is honor restored after months of being misunderstood, misjudged, and overlooked. I am not merely compensating you for what you lost. I am placing you in a new position, where you no longer bow your head in shame. The enemy knows this, and that is why he tried with all his might to block it. He stretched out the time. He clouded your mind. He used lack to distort your identity. But he miscalculated one thing: you are not alone. And more importantly, he forgot that whoever stands against my child stands against me. When he attacks you, he touches what I protect. When he tries to take what belongs to you, he confronts my decision. And my decision is not negotiable. You will come to realize that the fierce attacks of the past were not signs of your weakness, but signs of the value you carry. Prolonged battles did not mean you were going the wrong way, but that you were drawing near. Now, as heaven moves, the tide turns. You no longer need to strain yourself to fight. Your part is to keep your heart soft, your eyes clear, and your steps steady. Do not let memories of being blocked cause you to doubt a time of opening. Do not allow old fears to slow you when new light draws near. Prepare for change not with tension, but with readiness, ready to say yes when the door opens, ready to steward when resources arrive, ready to remain grounded when you are lifted up. I did not bring you out of a season of humiliation so you could live in display. I brought you out so you could live in the right place, the right role, the right rhythm. You will see that what I am doing does not merely resolve the present, it shapes the future. And when you look back on the road behind you, you will understand why everything had to unfold this way. You will no longer ask, "Why did you make me wait so long?" but will say, "Thank you for not opening it sooner." For if it had opened earlier, you might have gained results but lost yourself. Now you have both results and identity, abundance and peace, blessing and the wisdom to sustain it. Stay in this trust. Heaven is in motion. What belongs to you is on its way without haste, without losing direction, without being stolen away. And when everything is revealed, you will know not by theory, but by lived experience that I have guarded you in every step, fought for you in every battle, and led you here at the right time, in the right way, more fully than you ever dared to hope. The season of loss has closed, not with a loud sound, but with the quiet of a door shutting behind you. Some seasons do not end with fireworks, but with a lighter breath in the chest, with a morning when you wake and realize you are no longer curled inward as before. This is the time of harvest, of restoration and abundance, not only material abundance, but the return of fullness in faith, in hope, in the sense of being held. You have walked through days where every step forward came at a cost, nights when sleep was stolen by anxiety, mornings when you rose simply because you had promised your own heart that today you would not give up, and you kept that promise. You endured trials in ways not everyone could see. You learned to keep going without answers, to stand firm without guarantees. You did not choose the easy road of giving up, nor the hardened path of self-protection. You chose to stay with trust, even when it was tested to the limit. There were times when your faith was no longer bright, it was only a thin thread. Yet you held on. You did not set it down. You did not turn away, and in that very choice, you were kept, even through long stretches of silence. When you called and heard no reply, I was still guarding you. I did not leave when you were tired. I did not stand at a distance when you were weak. I upheld you in the smallest details, things you did not notice because you were busy enduring. I kept you from breaking under relentless pressure. I kept you from losing your heart when injustice repeated itself. I kept you from becoming someone you did not want to be when hurt demanded a voice. My silence was not absence. It was a steady presence unloud, yet never withdrawn. And now, I lift you up not by placing you above others so you look down, but by setting you in the right place. Exaltation is not display, it is restoration of position. I am restoring your identity to its proper order, so you no longer live under the shadow of fear and shame. You do not need to prove you are worthy. You do not need to keep score. Exaltation comes as the natural outcome of standing firm when you could have walked away. When you stayed, you gave me room to complete what I began. This was never only a battle about money. Money is merely the surface, the most visible point of tension. Beneath it is the battle for identity, who you are when everything is taken away. The battle for faith, whether you still believe when there are no signs. The battle for hope, whether you still expect when waiting stretches on. The enemy knows this well. He does not need to take everything. He only needs to cool your heart, harden you, make you doubt. He knows that if you lose your trust in me, he has won a victory far greater than any lack. He tried. He knocked on your weariness, touched painful memories, replayed moments of delay, misunderstanding, and being overlooked. He tried to persuade you that staying was naive, that trust was reckless, that openness only leads to disappointment. But you did not follow that voice. Though wounded, you did not let bitterness take root. Though exhausted, you did not turn your fatigue into a verdict against me. You stayed not because you were strong, but because you were faithful. And it was this faithfulness in weakness that made you strong in the right way. Because you stayed, I will reward you, not with a reward that erases the past, but one that turns the past into a foundation. I will show you that what was lost was not the end, but the pruning needed for you to bear better fruit, that what was taken to protect you from endings that were never yours, that what was delayed so it could arrive at the right time. When you had the depth to hold it without losing yourself, my reward does not merely restore, it reorders. It does not only compensate, it places you into a new alignment. The harvest comes not to make you rush, but to teach you to gather with wisdom. You will see restoration unfold in layers, first within, then flowing outward. You will notice a calmer heart when facing decisions. You will find yourself no longer reacting from old fears. You will see resources opening, doors easing, relationships healed or replaced by something healthier. You will see abundance arrive together with peace, without panic accompanying it. Let me say this so your heart may be steady. The reward does not come because you were perfect. The reward comes because you were faithful. Faithfulness is not the absence of falling. Faithfulness is rising again without walking away. Faithfulness is staying when the silence stretches long. Faithfulness is keeping your heart soft when you have every reason to harden it. Faithfulness is refusing to trade trust for temporary comfort. I see this, and I know how to honor what I see. In the days ahead, you may find yourself placed into new positions, positions of trust, of responsibility, of influence. Do not be afraid of these places. I do not set you where you lack the strength to stand. I will walk with you, guide you, and correct you when needed. Exaltation comes with covering. Abundance comes with wisdom. Harvest comes with a new rhythm of life, slower on the inside, steadier on the outside. Remember this, the enemy wanted you to lose everything, including your faith, but he did not take what was most precious, because you did not hand it over. You held on to faith even when it felt fragile. You held on to hope even when it was small. You guarded your heart even when pain knocked at the door. And because you kept it, I kept you. Because you stayed, I completed what I began. Now, step into the new season with humility and courage. Humility, to know that everything comes by grace. Courage, to receive good things without suspicion. Do not rush to forget the lessons of the previous season. They are treasures that keep you aligned. Do not allow painful memories to pull you backward. Let them become testimonies of faithfulness. You are no longer in a season of loss. You are in a season of harvest. And when you look back, you will understand why the road had to be this way. You will not say, "If only," but instead, "Thank you." For if there had not been days when you stayed while leaving, would have been easier. You would not have gained the depth required to hold what I am about to place in your hands. I guarded you in the silence. I upheld you in weakness. And now I lift you up at the right time, in the right way, and more fully than you ever dared to hope. In your financial life, the coming weeks will carry a very different tone, not because you discovered a new formula, nor because you suddenly became better at calculating. There will be things that happen which, if you try to explain them through logic alone, you will find yourself short of words, for I am not limited by the straight lines of human reasoning. I move beyond the patterns you are used to relying on to understand the world. And this is exactly how it will be. I will act in ways that exceed your expectations, yet never exceed my love for you. You will begin to recognize my hand in very specific places. Numbers that once felt dry and lifeless will begin to speak. Bank statements you once viewed with anxiety will carry lines that cause you to pause, look more closely, and breathe more slowly. Not because you became wealthy overnight, but because order has been restored. Certain provisions will arrive at the right time. Certain burdens will be lifted at the right place. Certain figures will be rearranged in ways you could not have predicted. You will realize that my hand does not touch only what is large. I touch every small detail so you may know that you are being cared for. You will also hear my faithfulness through unexpected phone calls, calls you were not waiting for, from people you did not anticipate, with offers you once considered out of reach. It may be an opportunity opening sooner than expected, support arriving without pleading, or a confirmation you have waited for far too long. These calls will not come to overwhelm you. They will come to steady you. They will arrive as a quiet whisper. You no longer have to manage everything alone. You do not need to force every door open with your own strength. Some doors are being opened from the other side. In the rhythm of everyday life, you will encounter my presence in places you once overlooked. A morning that feels more peaceful. A decision made without tension. A brief conversation that brings clarity. A bill resolved smoothly. An expense reduced, taken individually. These moments may seem small, but when placed together, they form a clear path. I am walking with you, step by step, without noise, without display, but with consistency. And then there will be a moment not when you are most excited, but when you are most at rest, when you will quietly say within yourself, Lord, how did everything unfold so quickly? That question will not rise from doubt, but from holy wonder. And I will remind you, with a gentleness you recognize, well, it is not fast. It is the right time, not earlier. So you would panic, not later. So you would be exhausted. The right time, my time, when your heart is soft enough to receive without fear, steady enough to hold without hardening, and clear enough to discern without suspicion. There are things that could not come any earlier, because if they had, you would have used them to cover fear rather than to serve life. I waited for your heart to be healed, for your identity to be reset, for the voices that pulled you downward to be silenced. I waited for the spiritual atmosphere to be cleansed, for invisible chains to be loosened, for restraining orders to be revoked, for doors to open without being pulled shut again by old anxieties. When the atmosphere is clean, what is good can arrive without being contaminated. Now, there is nothing standing in the way anymore, not because the enemy has disappeared, but because it has lost its authority. Not because the system has suddenly become lenient, but because I have set everything back into proper order. You will notice that the things which once made you hesitate no longer carry the same weight. You will make decisions with peace rather than pressure. You will walk with a steady breath instead of haste. And within that rhythm, I will continue to add, not in a way that overwhelms you all at once, but in a sustained pace that allows you to build. Remember this, so your heart does not waver when good things begin to arrive. My miracles do not cancel discipline, they complete it. I do not make you lazy. I cause your efforts to bear fruit. I do not replace your stewardship. I give you the conditions to steward in freedom. You will learn to see money no longer as a source of security, but as a tool that serves good purpose. You will give without trembling, receive without shame, and keep without fear of loss. If at any point you find yourself asking, so what should I do now? Keep it simple. Remain in trust. Do not rush to tell everyone. Do not rush to prove anything. Do not speed up out of fear of missing the moment. Do well the part that belongs to you today. Be faithful in small things. upright in your decisions, gentle in your heart. My part is to arrange what you cannot control. When you keep your heart at rest, I keep the way open. In the days ahead, you may see the pieces coming together very quickly. Do not panic at the speed, rejoice in the order. I am not pushing you to run, I am leading you at the right pace. And if you happen to fall a step behind, I will not abandon you. I will adjust the timing. I am the one who calibrates time better than anyone. I know when to accelerate, when to pause, and when to wait one more beat so that what is good does not become a burden. When you look back on these weeks, you will not only remember the numbers that changed, you will remember the return of peace. You will remember the clarity in your mind. You will remember no longer reacting from old fear. And you will understand that what I have been doing is not merely resolving finances. I am placing you on a new foundation, one where you live by trust, not by tension. So let your heart open. But do not rush. Receive. But do not panic. Walk. But do not run ahead. I am at work more clearly than you imagine, closer than you think, and more perfectly timed than you ever hoped. When you ask why everything seems to be happening so fast, I will smile and remind you, it is not fast. It is on time. And that appointed time has come when your heart is ready, when the atmosphere has been cleansed, and when nothing remains to prevent you from stepping into what I prepared long ago. Right now, something very deep is taking place, not loud, not showy, but decisive. An old cycle is being broken in your own life. The cycle of ongoing lack, of worry feeding upon worry, of fear passed down from one generation to the next, no longer has the right to continue. You are not the next link in the chain of scarcity. You are the place where it ends, through you. A different current is beginning, a current of sufficiency, of peace, of restored order. This is not happening because you are luckier than others, but because I have chosen you as the place where an old story ends and a new one begins. You will begin to see freedom in your children's eyes. Not freedom in the sense of having whatever they want, but freedom from the constant anxiety that once haunted you. You will realize that they are not growing up in the tense atmosphere you once endured. They do not have to overhear whispered conversations about money, nor feel the heaviness whenever a bill comes due. You are giving them an invisible yet priceless inheritance, a sense of safety. And that inheritance begins with the order I am restoring within your own household. That home, not merely four walls, will no longer be weighed down by financial worry. You will feel the atmosphere change. Conversations will grow lighter. Meals will no longer be rushed by tension. You will notice that you no longer calculate every breath, every small decision, every passing day with the question, will it be enough? I am lifting a burden that has clung to you for far too long, so that your home can once again become a refuge, not a battlefield. You will see very specific, very ordinary signs, things you once didn't dare to dream too big about. A full refrigerator will no longer be a rare moment, but a familiar state. The dining table will have enough to share. Essential items will no longer have to wait for when there's money. You will begin to realize that sufficiency is not a luxury, it is the proper order I have appointed for you. And when you look at your bank account, you will see it in the positive, not merely as a number, but as a feeling of release. The feeling that you are no longer standing on the edge, no longer startled every time you check. But the greatest change is not in the numbers. The greatest change is the return of peace. It comes like waking up after a long, drawn-out nightmare at first, disoriented, still afraid that everything might come rushing back, and then slowly realizing you are standing in a new reality. You will notice your heartbeat slowing. You will sleep more deeply. You will feel that mornings are no longer as heavy as before. This peace is not temporary. It is the result of knowing that you no longer have to carry everything alone. I created you for abundance. But, my beloved, when I speak of abundance, I am not speaking only of money. Money is just a small part of the picture. Abundance is when you no longer live with a mindset of lack, when you no longer wake up each day with anxiety about what tomorrow will bring, when you can close your eyes and rest deeply, not because every problem has vanished, but because you know you are being held. Abundance is when you dare to smile again, a smile that is not forced, not defensive, not hiding. Abundance is when you dare to make plans without fear, when you can think about the future without immediately shrinking your dreams, when you can say, "We will do this," instead of, "Maybe someday." You will notice yourself beginning to think long term, not because you control everything, but because you trust that a hand is guiding you. You no longer have to live in survival mode. You are being invited into stewardship of time, resources, relationships, and even dreams. You have been bracing yourself for so long that at times you no longer realize you are allowed to relax. But I am teaching you how to live more lightly without becoming irresponsible, more peacefully without becoming passive. I am changing not only your circumstances, but the way you respond to them. What once sent you into panic no longer holds the same power. The fears that once governed your decisions are slowly retreating. Understand this deeply: the breaking of the cycle of lack is not only a blessing for you, it is a declaration for the generations after you. You are drawing a sacred boundary and saying, "From here on, the story will be different." Not because you are perfect, but because you dared to believe and remain. You did not let fear define you. You did not let the past decide the future. And therefore, I fulfill my part. There will still be days when you must learn, adjust, and mature in how you handle abundance. I do not promise that there will be no more challenges, but I do promise that those challenges will no longer come from relentless lack. You will face new things from a different foundation, a foundation of sufficiency and peace. And from that foundation, you will not be swept away. You will stand firm. My beloved, allow yourself to enjoy this change without guilt. You do not need to apologize for being at peace. You do not need to feel ashamed because life feels lighter. I did not pull you out of a nightmare so that you would live in fear of its return. I brought you out so that you could learn to live in the daylight, eyes open, breathing deeply, walking forward without constantly looking back. Remember that the abundance I give always comes with purpose. When you live more lightly, you will love more deeply. When anxiety no longer suffocates you, you will have room in your heart for others. When you are no longer fighting just to survive, you will have energy to build. I do not give abundance so that you close in on yourself. I give it so that you open up and open your heart, open your hands, open your future. And as you continue into this new season, I want you to learn something very subtle but profoundly important. Do not rush to look back in fear. Some people, as soon as they step out of lack, begin living in a guarded posture, as if the nightmare could return at any moment. I did not call you out of the old cycle so that you would live in vigilance. I called you out so that you could learn to dwell in the truth that you are being kept, that this new foundation is not as fragile as you think. You do not need to grip everything tightly to protect it. I am covering you with my own faithfulness. There will be moments when you realize that you respond differently to familiar situations. Before, a small signal was enough to make your body tense, your heart race, your mind spiral into worst-case scenarios. But now, you will find that you can pause, you exhale. You are no longer pulled back into the old vortex. This is not because you have become careless, but because you have been healed. When fear no longer rules, wisdom finally has space to speak. I am training you to live with clarity, not by survival reflexes. In the abundance I give you, You will learn how to steward, not to control, but to care. You will know when to spend, when to hold, and when to give. You will not give out of pressure or guilt, but out of joy. You will not hold back out of fear, but out of discernment. I do not place you in abundance to test you. I place you there because you have matured enough to keep your heart upright amid good things. And if there are moments when you feel unsure, I will remind you gently, patiently, so that you do not lose your way. I also want you to know that abundance does not distance you from me. It clarifies the bond between us. When pressure no longer weighs you down, you will hear me more clearly. When you no longer have to scramble, you will recognize what I whisper in the quiet. You will see that I am not only the one who rescues you from lack, but the one who walks with you in everyday decisions. I am there when you make plans, when you weigh your choices, when you dream new dreams you once did not dare to dream. And, my beloved, let me speak about your children, the generations watching you every day. They learn not only from what you say, but from how you live. When they see your peace, they learn that life is more than constant battle. When they see you steward abundance with humility, they learn that money is not an idol. When they see you give without fear, they learn that their source never runs dry. You are teaching them a lesson you were never taught. Security does not come from hoarding, but from knowing you are cared for. There will be moments when you face old memories, memories of lack, of anxiety, of days when tomorrow felt uncertain. Do not push them away in panic. Look at them with new eyes. You no longer stand there. You are here in a restored present. Those memories do not come to pull you back. They come to remind you how far you have come. And when you remember, let your heart be grateful, not bitter. Grateful that you did not collapse. Grateful that I did not leave. Grateful that the story changed course. In this season, I will also invite you to widen your heart in new ways. You will meet people who need the comfort you once needed. You will hear stories that mirror your earlier path, and you will realize that what you endured was not wasted. It has become a language through which you can reach others. I did not pull you out of lack so you would forget those still there. I pulled you out so you could become a bridge, not through long sermons, but through a presence that understands without judgment. Remember this, you do not need to prove your abundance through images or words. True abundance is always quiet. It shows itself in how you treat others, in the freedom in your eyes, in a pace of life no longer rushed. You do not need to compare. You do not need to chase anyone's standard. I did not give you a template to copy. I gave you a path to walk, a path fitted to your identity and your rhythm. There will be times when you are tested in a different way, not by lack, but by choice. The choice between moving fast or going deep. The choice between display or discretion. The choice between keeping a soft heart or letting success harden it. I trust you, because I have seen your faithfulness when you had nothing. The one faithful in little will be faithful in much, not because they are better, but because they have learned to place me at the center. And if you miss a step, do not be afraid. I am here to realign, not to condemn. You will also learn something new about joy. Joy will no longer be a rare visitor that comes and goes. It will become a baseline state, a lasting lightness, a laughter that returns without strain. You will notice yourself laughing more easily, forgiving more quickly, and resting more truly. That is not a sign you are becoming weak. It is a sign you are becoming yourself. I did not create you to live rigidly. I created you to live fully in your work, in your family, and in the ordinary moments you once lacked the peace to enjoy. Let me remind you of this, so you do not lose your way in good days. Your source is not abundance. Your source is me. Abundance is the flow. I am the spring. When you remember this, You will not fear losing, nor fear having. You will stand steady amid change, because you do not anchor your identity in circumstances. And if one day adjustments are needed, I will be there, not to let you fall, but to teach you. In the weeks and months ahead, you will find yourself making long-term plans with peace. You will think about the future without trembling. You will build step by step, neither rushed nor delayed, with wisdom. I do not promise every road will be straight. I promise you will not walk alone. When you need guidance, I will speak. When you need rest, I will remind you. When you need courage, I will uphold you. And when you need remembering, I will whisper again the truth that brought you here. Finally, my beloved, let your heart remain in gratitude. Gratitude is not forgetting hard days. It is seeing hard days in the light of the present. Gratitude does not make you passive. It makes you awake. When you live with gratitude, you keep the flow unobstructed, not because I need it, but because you need it to live lightly. The old cycle has ended. A new cycle is unfolding, not only today, but every day you choose to trust. Choose to stay. Choose to walk in truth. You are no longer one who runs from fear. You are one who lives in sufficiency. You are no longer haunted by tomorrow. You are building tomorrow with peace. You no longer wake up with anxiety. You wake up with holy expectation. You have lived for far too long in survival mode, a state where each passing day is an effort to keep everything from collapsing. You woke up with a mind stretched tight like a drawn wire, pouring all your energy into patching, managing, and sealing the cracks as soon as they appeared. There was no room to dream, no time to breathe deeply. There was only the task of holding on. I saw you in those days, walking fast, making rushed decisions, your heart pounding from the fear of falling behind, the fear of lack, the fear that one more slip would cause everything to come undone. You did the best you could, and I do not take that lightly. But my beloved, survival is not the place you were created to remain. Now, I am drawing you out of survival, not with a sudden yank that leaves you disoriented, but with a steady repositioning. I am placing you into authority. This does not mean you become hardened or domineering. It means circumstances no longer control you. You no longer react from fear, you act from guidance. You no longer run, seeking permission to exist. You walk as one who has been entrusted with authority. For you are my child, and the child of a king does not beg for scraps, does not beg for attention, does not beg for opportunity, does not beg for pity. You stand in your identity, and from that identity, you receive. The blessing I am releasing over your life is not meant to make you busier. It is meant to cause everything that has been stagnant to begin flowing again. Blocked currents in your work, in your finances, in your relationships will be cleared, not by you straining one more time, but by my precise arrangement. You will notice that the first movement is quiet. A decision gets approved. An answer comes sooner. An appointment is rescheduled just right. An idea is welcomed. These small movements will assemble into a new trajectory, one where you are no longer held back by old knots. Doors that seemed locked for decades, locked by procedures, by prejudice, by precedent, by familiar phrases like impossible or not. The right time will open one by one, and you will be surprised that they open without force. You will not need to persuade endlessly, explain excessively, or lower yourself just to be heard. I will open them. When I open, no one can shut, and when I shut, no one can force them open. You will learn a new lesson. Your effort is no longer to push doors, but to step through when they are already open. I will arrange circumstances not to make everything perfect, but to make everything fitting. Fitting for a new rhythm of life. Fitting for a restored identity. fitting for the capacity to steward that I am building within you. You will see the pieces fall into place, timing aligns, resources align, people align. What once was always almost will no longer be almost. It will arrive. Plans that had to shrink because of fear of lack will open with wisdom, not recklessly, not hesitantly, but with steadiness. I will also place the right people along your path. Not all of them will stay long. Some come to open a door, some to confirm, some to walk with you for a season. You will recognize the difference. New relationships do not drain you, they nourish you. Encounters no longer pull you into old cycles, they move you forward. You will no longer have to guess who is who through weary intuition. You will have a clear peace within a quiet but unmistakable yes. And my beloved, I will do something that will surprise you. I will even use people you never expected to extend favor to you. It may be someone you are not close to, someone you once thought was irrelevant, someone you never imagined would stand on your side. I touch them in my way, reminding them, stirring their conscience, widening their vision so they act at the right moment. You do not need to maneuver behind the scenes. I work behind the curtain. When favor comes from sources you did not anticipate, you will know it is I, so that you do not credit yourself. This repositioning will also change how you use your energy. Before, you spent energy preventing collapse. Now, you will spend energy building. Before, you lived in alarm mode. Now, you live in discernment. You will find yourself with energy for things you once had to neglect: listening, creating, caring, resting. This is not luxury. It is the mark of authority. Those who carry authority are not frantic, not hurried, not pulled by every noise. I know there will be moments when you hesitate, because the memory of survival still whispers. Be careful, don't trust too much. When that happens, do not blame yourself. Stay. Allow your heart to learn a new rhythm. Survival taught you to grip tightly. Authority teaches you to open your hand at the right time. You will not lose what I give when you open your hand. You will multiply it. You will learn to give without trembling, to receive without shame, and to keep without fear of loss, because you know your source is not in numbers, but in me. The movement ahead is not a reckless surge. It is a steady current. You will feel your rhythm of life change, clearer decisions, deeper sleep, laughter returning. You will dare to make long-term plans, not because you control the future, but because you trust. Trust that you no longer have to fight to survive. You are walking to steward what I entrust to you. Trust that if adjustments are needed, I will adjust. Trust that if another pause is required, I will keep your heart at peace. Remember this, so you do not return to old paths. Authority does not need to prove itself. You are not required to explain yourself to everyone. You do not need to persuade those who do not wish to understand. You walk with a grounded humility, neither flaunting nor hiding, neither anxious nor afraid. When you are in the right position, favor speaks for itself. When you move in the right rhythm, doors open on their own. When you stand in the right identity, resources find their way to you. And when you look back on the season of survival you have passed through, you will no longer call it lost years. You will call it a school, a place where you learned perseverance, faithfulness, and how to listen. Yet you were not created to remain in school forever. You were created to step into a role. The role of a child entrusted with authority, of a steward with a tender heart, of one who walks in peace without losing desire. So, my beloved child, rise not in tension, but in trust. Walk forward not to beg, but to receive. Look ahead, not with old fears, but with holy expectation. I am making a way. I am placing people. I am arranging circumstances. and I am releasing favor at the right time, in the right place, in the right rhythm, so that you no longer live in survival, but in the authority I ordained for you from the beginning. Now, pray, loving Father, today I come before you not in strength, nor with tidy answers for my life. I come with shoulders worn from bracing, with burdens I have carried for so long that I no longer remember why I began carrying them. There are debts not written on paper, but etched into my short breaths, into sleepless nights, into mornings that greet me with anxiety already waiting. I have grown used to living in a state of self-reliance, having to manage, to keep my balance, to prove that I am fine, even when inside I am empty. Today, I lay everything down before you, not because I have resolved it all, but because I no longer have the strength to carry it. Please remove from me the burdens that are not mine, the responsibilities I accepted out of fear, fear of failure, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough. Please clear the path I once believed was tightly locked, and teach me to trust that my life is not governed by pressure, but guided by your loving hand. Father, I confess that I have grown accustomed to living within limits not because I desire little, but because I am afraid that hoping for more will only lead to deeper disappointment. I learned to shrink my dreams to protect myself, to say this is enough, while my heart still longs to live lighter, deeper, and freer. I ask you to touch the fear of lack that has taken root within me, the fear that keeps me tense about tomorrow, always believing that if I do not control everything, it will all fall apart. Teach me that your blessing is not a trap, and that peace is not something I must be wary of. Replace in me the mindset of self-rescue with true trust, so I may learn to receive without shame, to rest without guilt, and to hope without punishing myself for having hoped. Father, there have been nights when I quietly wondered, have you forgotten me? At times that doubt turned into a more painful thought, am I being punished? I did not dare to speak it aloud, but I carried that question in my heart, letting it slowly erode my peace. Today, I ask you to uproot that false belief completely. Help me know with clarity that lack is not punishment, and that difficult paths are not signs of your absence. Teach me to discern the voice of truth from the lies sown when I am weakest. Restore in me the image of a gracious Father, who does not measure love by circumstances, but by an unbroken presence. Father, when everything I once leaned on fell away, when human promises no longer stood firm, when I was left with nothing but myself and the emptiness, I thought it was failure. Today, open my eyes to see that it was the moment you were closest to me, not because you had just arrived, but because everything that obscured you had moved aside. Help me realize that I do not need to possess anything for you to remain with me. I do not need to prove my worth to be held. Heal in me the habit of self-blame, and teach me to rest in the truth that I am loved without condition, guarded even when I do not understand what is happening. Father, please keep me present in the moments when I most want to leave. Stay with me when I am tired. Stay with me when I am ashamed of not being enough. Stay with me when light begins to break in, yet I want to retreat for fear of losing it. Replace in me the old refrain, "It will be lost anyway," with your truth, that good things do not come to taunt me, but to remain and restore me. Give me the courage not to sabotage days of peace simply because I am unfamiliar with stillness. Teach me that sometimes faith is not moving forward, but staying long enough to be touched. Father, teach me to listen without haste, without argument, without the posture of asking while fearing. Let silence become the place where you set your voice within my heart. If there are things I need to release, show me with gentleness. If there are things I need to trust more deeply, support me so I no longer tremble before the future. Free me from the pressure to understand everything. Grant me light sufficient for the next step, and a heart soft enough to follow that light, even when I cannot yet see the entire path. Father, I surrender to the deeper work you are doing, not merely removing debt, but redirecting an entire way of living, not merely solving problems, but reshaping identity. Teach me to emerge from this season not as one who survived, but as one who has been renewed, living in trust rather than vigilance, in stewardship rather than fear of loss, in the confidence of belonging to you rather than the need to prove my worth. May the outward redirection lead to inward transformation, so that the way I think, the way I choose, and the way I speak to myself are all reset within your order. Father, at last, I allow myself to rest, not because I am giving up, but because I am laying my burdens down in the right place. I am not my own savior. I am simply one who is loved. Help me remain within your promise, even when I cannot yet see the shape of its fulfillment. Father, take hold of what remains in me, no matter how small, how weak, how trembling, and plant it in your steady hands. I trust that what you have promised will not return empty. And today, I choose to stay in your presence, to stay in love, to stay long enough to be led into a new chapter of my life, where your restoration and justice slowly unfold, day by day. Loving Father, I come before you with something I rarely dare to say plainly. I am not only tired from pressure, I am tired from the feeling of having to bow under circumstances. There are moments when I feel pulled down by numbers, by responsibilities, by invisible expectations from others, and by the voices of self-accusation echoing within me. I have tried to live uprightly, tried not to do wrong, tried to keep my heart from bitterness. Yet there are days when my dignity feels worn down by the constant need to manage, just to survive. Today, I ask you to restore within me a clean steadiness, a steadiness that does not come from having enough money or enough achievements, but from belonging to you. Remove from me the urge to chase respect, to endure merely to prove my worth. Renew my sense of dignity according to heaven's way, not arrogant, not self-exalting, but never self-diminishing either. Teach me to walk in integrity without being crushed by shame. If there is anything I need to correct, correct me with love, not with fear. If there is anything I need to release, help me let go without regret. And if there are doors you are opening for me, grant that I may step through them with the right posture, not submissive, not rushed, not greedy, but calm, clear, and full of trust. Grant me wisdom to steward everything you place in my hands, whether little or much, with gratitude and purity of heart. Help me remember that blessings are not given for display, but for stability, not to make me forget my source, but to enable me to support rightly, help at the right time, and live generously without emptying myself. I lay before you my honor, my name, my story. Restore them fully, so that I will not need to explain myself. For your peace upon my life will become the testimony. I also ask you to heal the memories of hopes that were raised and then shattered. Uproot from me the reflex to sabotage before good things have time to remain. Teach me to stay long enough for my heart to trust again, not trust fleeting emotions, but trust your unchanging nature. And when provision, deliverance, and turning points arrive, keep me humble, help me not forget the days you sustained me through small, quiet mercies. Remind me that the greatest gift is not merely that problems are solved, but that I am restored to live with a different rhythm of breath, the rhythm of one who is cared for. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we can build a strong and growing community of faith.
you.